Hi, today on Africa Talks Tech, I and Sam and two other of our guests would be discussing a very interesting topic. And Sam, you want to take it from here?
Yes, we will be talking about notable contributions from Africans in the diaspora to the tech community, and it's with Steve Buchanan and Adnan. I'm not going to use his surname because we're going to caption it because he's just a really cool guy. So without further ado, let's kick into today's episode and welcome to the show.
Hello. You're welcome to the June's edition of Africa Talks Tech with myself and Sam. Again, my name is Kazim Adegwega. I work as the Managing Director at the Lasso CBT 18 Limited. And I'm not alone as usual, so I've got my partner and my very good friend as always with me. Sam, it's over to you now.
Hi, Sam Erskine. I'm head of cloud engagements for a large organization, but this is the fun side of my whole day, or the month of June, as we will call this one. Today's show, we've got two special guests, great friends of ours from the diaspora. We've got Steve and Adnan. So, Adnan, a little hello to our regular listeners.
Hey everybody, hi Kazim, hi Sam and Steve. Nice seeing you guys again. Thanks for having me.
Oh, good. And Steve, you're hiding away, not far away land. How are you?
Hey everyone, glad to be a part of the show. Hey Sam, hey Kazim.
Hi Steve.
Excellent. So in today's show, we're going to do something slightly different. We typically talk to our guests about something that they're doing notably in Africa, but there's a term called the diaspora, and these are the global citizens of Africa, either through first, third, recent generation. And today we've got two great guys in a community that have roots in Africa. So we're going to be really listening to Adnan and Steve and sharing some information around the contributions that they're making as an African diaspora, as well as some of the trends they see in themselves within the environments that they work in. So if I may start with yourself, Steve, can you share your journey on how you acquired that title of African diaspora, as we know you are in the US today?
Yeah, so like most African Americans, right? My ancestors, I could trace it back to like slavery, right? All the way back to Tennessee. And I've never done one of those DNA tests, but I have a cousin who did those DNA tests. You can buy them from ancestry.com or whatever. And hers came back with from Ghana, was traced back to Ghana as well as Madagascar. So it was interesting to see that. But beyond that, we don't have like documented history going back to Africa because, of course, when they captured Africans and brought them over on the transatlantic slave trade, the first thing that they did was started to erase Africans' history, right? So it was cut off right there. But my history goes back to like Tennessee in the slave trade, and I'm pretty proud of that history because I actually have an ancestor that fought in the Civil War to help win, freedom for slaves. And speaking of that, it's June. So in the US, it's actually Juneteenth. And just yesterday, Congress passed a law to put Juneteenth into place as an official holiday. And we're expecting today that the president will sign it as well and make it an official holiday. So I don't know if you guys know about Juneteenth, but the last slaves in the United States, in Texas, heard that slavery ended like a year after it ended.
Well,
which is a crazy story in itself, right?
We could do a whole show on that one. I had seen that in a comedy show before, but I didn't really know the full background. That's fantastic. And by the way, Steve, you have a Ghanaian and a Nigerian on the show. So this is Black Presence Month, so you have your choice of whether you want to be Ghanaian or Nigerian.
Yeah.
So hold that thought and we'll get so back to yourself, Adnan. I know you have a very interesting accent. I'm not going to try and guess where you come from because I actually know where you do come from, but from our audience, how about your journey?
Well, I'm a South African citizen still to this day, living in Europe. And my background is basically I followed my roots. Growing up in South Africa, it's a bit like the States, right? Most of the people that aren't native came from somewhere else. So my ancestry is a whole mixed bag full of Europeans and Asian, etc. And I was born and raised in South Africa, so right at the bottom. And on my mother's side, she has Dutch ancestry. And that's one of the reasons I initially decided to, move to Europe at some point in my career to, try something new. That's a little bit of my background and where I am now.
Thank you very much, both of you.
Thank you very much for that. I want to ask as well, many people didn't come into tech with a computer science background. And a lot of the tech guys just came into tech by accident now. So I want to check with you, how did you get into the tech space and what was it for you that informed your career choice in tech now? So maybe we can start with you, Steve.
Yeah, so I actually landed a job in my senior year of high school. I finished my credits early, so I was like, what am I going to do with my time? So I started working at a company, and a very small company, and they started to teach me about computers. And at the time, I was a teenager. I was like, oh, I just want a job. I just want to make money, right? And they were paying pretty good. It was like $9 an hour at the time. And once I got in there and started working with the networking, right, I remember specifically I had to help a business like set up a VPN through like some sort of, I think it was a 3Com device. I don't know if all of you remember those. But that really helped me catch the bug, and I was like, I really like this stuff. This stuff is challenging and it's interesting. And from that point, I decided to go to college for technology. So that's what really kind of got me started in the field.
Okay, thank you, Steve. And Adnan, you want to share as well?
Well, like at birth, my family decided I should go study medicine and become a doctor, but I had other plans.
Oh, just like Sam.
Since a young age, I was into tech. I loved electronics, and if it wasn't broken and me trying to fix it, I was always trying to create something new out of broken parts. Connecting wires and screens and displays and lights and stuff, and making toys and things. So family members actually got me into the idea of studying IT. And at first my interest was in becoming a developer, writing computer programs and those kind of thing. But then the same family member said, well, you're pretty good at that, but have you ever thought about the other part of IT where you could like manage the entire network and servers and basically have a more bigger reach in a company instead of just writing a program? And I thought about it and I said, well, that sounds a lot better. That sounds like me. And after my studies, I actually just went to work at a company where I had the opportunity to also learn systems engineering, did the whole MCSE, thing. And because I still had the developing thing in me, they said, well, you can learn something easily. So you can also have the ability to explain that to people and teach others. So I went into a very mixed field at the start of my career, where I was able to have the IT skills, train people, I could do some development work, and I could set up the whole infrastructure. So I had a very fortunate start in my career. And, there were positives and negatives. The negatives is that I can never have a normal job, because in a normal job, people expect you to do one thing. So yeah, that was my start in IT. And it's actually due to those skills, having those skills, that I had the ability to be able to work anywhere in the world. My ticket to freedom.
Okay,
Travel.
so I'm not going to try to ask Sam now, so I think we'll leave that for another show, right, Sam?
Indeed, and I will leave it at that because it's quite a long journey. We'll save it for the next show, Kazim.
Yeah. Okay, so the other question I have for you guys is I want to ask about your contributions now. You know, I've known Adnan for a while, likewise Steve now. And one thing I appreciate about you both is your selflessness, you know, always willing to help. So I want to check with you if you can now to share with our viewers that will be listening to this at a later time now. What are some of those contributions in the tech space that you've done, and you know, what are your plans for the future? We can start with Steve on this one as well.
So are you asking about just contributions in general, or like a specific area? Because I have a long list of stuff that I do. Right?
So how about we stick to your top three, Steve?
Top three.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, I've always done a lot of. Let me start over. So I like to share, right? And that's just kind of in my makeup. And years ago, I'd say back in like 2007, I realized when I'm working and I run into a problem, if no one shared, I'd be up a creek, right? Without a paddle. Because when we run into problems, what do? We go search, right? And we hope that some other admin out there is run into that problem, right? And so a light bulb went off in my head, like I need to contribute to this world of knowledge to help others on their jobs, right? Or help others that are starting out in tech. And so that's just been like, I started blogging from that point, and that led to books, and that led to speaking at conferences. And thanks to, Sam pushing me over the edge there and getting me started on speaking. And that has led to like doing courses at Pluralsight now. And so it's all been about, just sharing my knowledge that I learn. And I feel like we always learn, no matter what level we're at, we're always learning something new. And folks have value that they can give back in the form of knowledge. And so I'd say that's the number one, is just sharing through various like different ways, right? And for me, that's always transforming. So right now it's a lot of courses. Tomorrow it might be something else. And so another way is just I like to mentor people, but I like to like do one-on-one mentoring, and especially folks that look like me that might feel like maybe tech is not for them, or they don't know how to get into tech or really navigate in tech, right? And if they're starting out in tech, like how do they grow their careers? And so I've mentored a few people, and I'm actually getting ready to mentor another young guy that just finished college. And so I like to do that as well, right? Especially for someone that's hungry and they're trying to figure out like, how do I get this job, or how do I move into that type of position? And when I'm in the company, how do I move up? So I love doing that. And then number three, just doing stuff like this, right? Hanging out with you guys. This is super, super fun. It'd be great to see you guys in person. And I love what, Kazim, you and Sam have been doing with this show. And so one of the other things I like to do is just make connections in the background. And as you know, we have a lot of Africans living in Minnesota. And so I love connecting them with you guys, because we have a lot of people, a lot of Africans doing a lot of great things, right, in tech. And so I think there's some really great stories. And so I just love that you guys have a platform to share that. And so I like connecting. I like connecting there. I like connecting people with jobs and opportunities. And, a friend of mine, I just got him onboarded to a book. So now he's going down the path of authoring. So just kind of giving back and helping where I can.
Yeah.
Thank you very much for that, Steve. And Adnan, do you want to share as well?
Well, it's pretty much what Steve said. You know, that thing about sharing, and it's one of those qualities that you recognize in, you know, guys like us. It's in our DNA to share what we know. So my thing is, it started with just, you know, blogging and you know, training guys that you work with, you know, helping out guys to better themselves, and which led to, you know, speaking at community events, locally, international conferences, you name it. So most of the time nowadays, it's online presentations, and you know, guest shows like these, where I like to share a little bit about my knowledge, Azure, Microsoft security, and you know, a little bit about myself. And like Steve does, you know, with the mentoring, I like to coach people as well that are also, you know, we all been there where you was either starting out and some guy just pointed you in the right direction. So I like to, you know, I like to be that guy for others. So helping people with their careers. So that's pretty much what I do.
Yeah. So I can testify to that. Just like all of you guys have also helped me in one way or the other too. So
That's fabulous. And I do agree with all of it. We share that common theme amongst ourselves. And I believe one of the things that we've also been very, very good at is being proud of who we are, even if we're not there. So the short version of me is, you know, I did grow up in Ghana, and there's a big difference between those that have never been to Africa and those that have lived in Africa and then moved across. Now, trying to connect the two in terms of the next question I have for both of you, and you can take it in turn, so you know you can start off and we can discuss it, is how are we supporting Africans in the community? Steve, you've shared with mentoring, but is there anything else that you know you are specifically doing it within a tech community to say amplify African women as an example? Because we've met some on in our journeys and it's been eye-opening. So if I go to you first, Adnan, I mean, how can we specifically contribute in that space, and what have you been doing or aware of that you know we can share?
Well, you know, I've pretty much planned on being actively, you know, contributing to Africa in general, above and beyond the other stuff that I've done, and that's also something that I've mentioned to some of my community leads, and it's just doing more conferences, tech events, local community events within countries in Africa. For example, doing a lot of events in South Africa, my own country. You know, a form of giving back, especially to people, you know, with the same background that I have. You know, growing up in Africa, and where you're just reading about tech and people in tech and those kind of things in books and watching them online. And I've tried to even do events in Africa where I've brought speakers. We've had conferences, and so that the local people can get to meet these guys, you know. So that's some of the things that I've done in South Africa. And then there's also conferences and things that I do with other MVPs and community leaders, you know, so they know which communities might need a specific technology speaker. And then in Ghana and also in Nigeria, I like to do a lot of events over there, and just share whatever I can share with anybody, you know. So that's pretty much what I try to do on a personal level, and that's also what everybody can do. You know, there's quite a lot of events that's accessible to everybody. you just have to keep your eye out whenever there's a call for speakers. It's nice to be, approached directly, but sometimes even guys like me, I see something happening and I fill in the call for speakers, and by luck you get selected to speak as one of the speakers, and it's always nice to then get in touch with those local guys and say, well, if there's any events or things I can help out with, they just have to ask, because I'm sure that we all agree, knowledge should be free, so it's really just making it accessible to people and then showing them what they can do once they have that, because the sky's the limit. Well, actually more than the sky, we're sending stuff into space, so that's about it for me.
To Africa and beyond. And thank you
Exactly.
very much, Adnan. And Steve, I know that we both live our passion, which is to help each other. And, building on that, when I first met you, most people don't realize that I was in an audience with Steve. I'd published my first book. And a speaker within Microsoft was on stage talking about it. And Steve was nudging me, going, hey, say something. I'm like, this is his platform, right? I'm not going to interrupt. So Steve spoke up. And that's why when I had the opportunity to get Steve on stage, because I was like, well, you have a voice that doesn't need a mic. What are you doing sitting here in the audience? So building on that, Steve, I know that you've sent us a lot of people from Minnesota. I'm being sensitive about the subject because the US is typically associated with a lot of negative things. So thinking about it more in a positive light, I know Minnesota, for instance, is a hotspot for a lot of African diaspora. What are you doing within that community? What are the things that we should be aware of that, very briefly you can share out here?
Yeah, that's a great story, by the way, Sam. We go back a ways. I remember that specific conference at Microsoft in Redmond. That was awesome. Yeah, Minnesota is home to a lot of Fortune 500 companies. I think we're up to 18 at this point, which is rare for a state. There's just something about this place where we have a lot of companies, and with that comes a lot of tech, right? So there's a lot of opportunity, and then we have a lot of Africans here. We have the largest population in the U.S. of people from Somalia. So we have that. There's a lot of Nigerians here. There's a lot of people from Liberia. There's people from all over the world, right? People from Ghana. So there's a lot of Africans in Minnesota in general. And then there are, I'll say, Africans that came through the transatlantic slave trade and just have been here for generations and generations. And so we have people in tech doing a lot of great things at different companies. In fact, I have maybe like 3 more people that I'm going to connect you guys with. Hopefully they can get on your show, right? So we have Africans and like African Americans in tech doing stuff all over the place, from vice presidents at well-known companies to software developers, people leading engineering teams, just people in all kinds of spaces, right? And some of the stuff I do is just whenever there's like a Blacks in Technology like user group or conference, I try to be involved, right? I try to be involved. I'm also, when I meet people and make friends, I try to connect them. So like helping them get on your platform or introducing them to other user groups or just connecting them to other people in the space that are doing things. And so that's one way. And we have a lot of youth programs here too. And so I try to be involved in the youth programs, whether it's like being a guest speaker, or sometimes I've volunteered at those programs to go present to the kids or even be a proctor, right? I'm not really an instructor, but I've definitely volunteered for like the summer programs, just to be a tech person there to help the kids if they get stuck on something, right? Because we have a lot of stuff going on all the time, and a lot of these programs are free. I mean, there's free programs to teach kids like how to program in Python, and that program is actually run by an African American. Shout out to Dr. Wolf. So we have all kinds of stuff going on, and I just try to be involved as long as my time allows it, right? And then the other thing I've been doing, especially since COVID hit and everyone's from home, right? I started reaching out to different user groups across different countries in Africa. So like I presented at the Azure user group from Ghana, and presented in some events in like Nigeria, and I'm talking to the Azure user group in Kenya, connected to some folks in Ethiopia. So I'm just trying to network, right, and make connections. And then when travel gets better and things open up more, I'm hoping to make it to the continent, and we'll see where it goes from there.
Well, thank you very much. And, you know, I do, when people ask me, what do I miss? I do miss those in-person connections. And Kazim and I, we connected in Ghana over 5 years ago at a training summit. So we could talk forever. However, Kazim, how about we combine the last curious area that we're both thinking about? Right, and I can start off and we can dig into it. So we've noticed a trend of the large tech companies moving into Africa, like Microsoft building data centers there, Twitter declaring Ghana as its headquarters, and Kazim, you know, being a child of Africa that's still growing up in Africa, it's the other side of it. So, you know, the migrating abroad, perhaps you can expand on that question, and then also we can bring it back for Steve and Adnan to contribute to it. So what is the story around Africans migrating abroad that you want to know a bit about, Kazim?
Yes, it's a little sad that the brain drain, we like to call it, the brain drain situation in Africa, where a lot of Africa are just migrating abroad. But for me, I just believe that, it can be a blessing in disguise for Africa, that if those Africans in the diaspora now plan to return back to Africa at some point, they could help build Africa of our dreams, considering or giving their exposure. Imagine, having 5 Sam, 5 Sam, 5 Steve, 5 Adnan. Let's put them in one country in Africa. IT in that country perhaps is never going to remain the same. So, and we have a lot of Africa in the diaspora. So it would be nice for them not just to leave, just like some of us are doing now. Yourself, Sam, Steve, and Adnan. So any opportunity they get, they try to help. They try to reach out to Africans. It's not, I would say that it's not possible for all Africa in the diaspora to return to Africa. Yes, some of them should have it at the back of their mind to return at some point. But if it's not possible to return, but it would be nice to always give a helping hand. So that's my take on it, Sam.
Indeed, and the virtual world is allowing it. So as we draw a little bit closer to this episode of the show, on those two topics, Adnan, I'll let you pick one, and whichever one you don't pick, Steve will have to pick that one. So any parting thoughts on it, that we should think about as a collective group, and how we can actually not necessarily exploit it, but amplify the positive aspects of those two trends?
Well, one thing I can definitely add, you've mentioned large companies moving to Africa. Now, my country is currently hosting 2 data centers of Azure that Microsoft built in South Africa, South and North. And the one is in Cape Town. So that allowed me to be able to show companies and communities down there some of the stuff that was already happening outside in the rest of the world, So it's a bit of bringing the technology home and having the guys locally being able, like a lot of the market in Africa is small startups, people are really brilliant. They have brilliant ideas. And quite often they have an African perspective to existing problems, African solutions, because the main thing that Africa is lacking in certain aspects, comes down to infrastructure, right? So South Africa, a country that's changed quite a lot, or at least it's grown so rapidly in the past couple of years. That growth has exponentially caused a lack of infrastructure due to electricity. So they have a lot of power cuts and things. So what a lot of companies have done is, instead of hosting things themselves, they've gone through to hosting their application and software on Microsoft data centers, and being on the Azure public cloud allows them to present their software internationally. So there's been a lot of growth in that aspect, making it easier for local companies to be able to sell offshore. And at the same time, skilling up, getting the technology to Africa has increased that ability that was only available to guys that were outside of the country, which is in a way causing less of a brain drain. But there's a lot of other reasons why people are leaving. In the end, they're still dealing with Africa, so there's a lot of political sides to it. There's a lot of personal sides, stories. I mean, I'm somebody that's also, you could say, born, raised, and left. And initially, I was only planning on coming to Europe for 1 year. I've worked and lived in the Middle East, and I've always moved back to Africa. But it's been like 20 years now. So, but mostly due to things like political changes and just ease of living somewhere where travel was easier. It's just easier to travel all over the world from Europe. You only a few hours away. Flying anywhere from Africa is like a whole day. So that was one of my reasons. I have a million others, but my main point is, it's great that the technology is finally on African soil, and the rest of the world is kind of catching up and seeing what Africa can bring to the table. So that's one of the best advantages of having it there.
Thank you very much. And Steve, if you can, close us out with your thoughts around this, and we will definitely need to do a part 2.2 of this show.
Yeah, definitely. So like Adnan stated, he mentioned the infrastructure in Africa. And so actually a good friend of mine, Zach, we were business partners in the past, and we'd always talked about how could we do business in Nigeria, because he's half Nigerian, right? His father's from there, but and one of the things that always comes up in those discussions is like, well, the infrastructure is not there widespread in regards to having internet and having ISPs, right? Like you have in Europe and like you have in the US and other places in the world. But as that changes, and as the infrastructure gets better, the talent is there. I'm connected with another company and entrepreneurs that have a huge team of developers across Ethiopia, Kenya, and Ghana, and they're doing some pretty amazing and innovative things, right? And so we're actually starting to see delivery centers and like leadership at large organizations, right? Sam, both you and I are part of large organizations that are global, and I've heard of the idea of standing up like delivery centers, right, out of different countries in Africa. So the talent is there. Also, in regards to not having the infrastructure everywhere that's needed, mobile devices and just mobile has exploded across many countries in Africa. And I hear this from my friends that are from Africa, like Liberia. I have a friend who he's a developer, right? And he started at the UN. he's in the US, he's been in the US for a long time, but he goes back to Liberia often. And we talk, right? We talk about what are the opportunities there, right? What's happening with tech in Liberia. And he talks about how it's all on the mobile devices. And I hear the same thing about Nigeria. And also, you know, I know of stories like there's some entrepreneurs out of Nigeria that built a mobile payment system, and it blew up, right? And it got acquired by a company out of Silicon Valley. So there's a ton of talent in Africa, and I think that in the future, near future, that you know Africa is just going to continue to rise, especially with Africans being all over the world, and then Africans being, you know, staying local and just learning about tech, because tech is it's leveling the playing field. And so we really are moving towards this global economy, and with things like Azure and other clouds and just, you know, technology is moving so fast, it's leveling the playing field. So you can be almost anywhere in the world, and if you have access, right, to technology, even if it's just on mobile devices, you can get in the tech game, and you can start to be innovative and bring your ideas. And also there's different problems, you know, in Africa than there are in like US and Europe, and those problems bring opportunities, right? And so what I've seen is just folks in Africa being creative and being innovative to start to solve those problems through technology, right? And that,
Yes.
to me, that's exciting. So the future is bright. It's really exciting, and I'm excited to see what's going to come out of Africa and folks that are African around the world, and just collaborating with everyone in tech. So
Yes, thank you very much. And Kazim, if you can, you know, close us out, because I believe they've summed almost everything we've been discussing for a while. I'll leave you with the window, because my view is it's two sides of it, right? There is what's happening now, and then what's happened that nobody knew about, that hopefully you and I have done our little bit to show.
Yes, definitely. And one thing I would also like to quickly add that if you guys know that over 60% now of the African population are under 25, so maybe a lot of people don't know that. So I think with that kind of statistics now, you know, people can begin to see Africa or the future of tech to be in Africa, and maybe not Silicon Valley this time, you know. All right, so I think this is how much time is going to permit us on today's episode of Africa Talks Tech. So people can have a rewatch of the previous episode on YouTube. So it's Africa Talks Tech on YouTube. And so I don't know if is there any last words from you, Sam, before we say goodbye?
Just a big thank you to our two esteemed guests who have been amazing and have been a big part of my success, both in the tech community as well as career-wise. So thank you very much to Steve for waking up early, and Adnan. We definitely need to reconnect in Europe at some point once all these things settle down.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
All right, so from myself now and the rest of the guys, Steve and Adnan, it's a bye-bye from us. So we'll do this again another time.
All right, good to see you guys.
Yeah, bye.